Okay, welcome to today's live stream. Today is February 18th, 2025, and in this live stream I'm just going to be finishing or working on finishing up this sculpture, getting it ready to take some final pictures of. I don't think I'll be shipping this out right away, but eventually I'll try to ship it to a foundry, and I believe that the company that commissioned it will have it cast in bronze. That should be cool and fun. And I've started working on the script for the video. It's kind of a promo video for the product that I'm using in this sculpture. And right now they reached out and said that the product should be available coming up soon on March 3rd, I think is the date, though that might be, subject to change, but I think that's the goal, is for the video to be out by then or around that time, or maybe that day. So you'll know kind of you'll kind of see a product promo video for this wax. And it's been really fun to work with, and I'm excited to work with the company. Hopefully there's some interest in utilizing this, trying to sculpt with it, because it has been fun. So if you guys are at all interested, I hope you take advantage and help support the sponsor once that video comes out. If you're interested in learning sculpting, then I definitely recommend checking out my sculpting courses. The Figure Sculpting Fundamentals course at proco.com/sculpture, and the Portrait Sculpting course at proco.com/portraitsculpt. And there's also a hand sculpting course at proco.com/handsculpt. All of those, I always try to mention those because that's what I do, help people learn to sculpt traditionally in clay. Say hi. Oh, wow, we got somebody that's early. Whoa, amazing, somebody says. Whoa, you outdid yourself with this one. Well, thank you, I appreciate it. It's been a fun sculpture. It's been a really fun sculpture, and I've really enjoyed it. I might have pushed the gesture of this leg a little bit too far. This kind of curved gesture. My wife says it looks like the leg's broken. I don't know if I'll change that. I could heat up the whole thing and kind of maneuver it, move it a little bit, but I think I'm okay with pushing the gesture a little bit further than it needs to be. Love the muscles, thanks. Yeah, this one's all about kind of the musculature anatomy. Really fun sculpture in that way. I like learning about those muscle groups and trying to represent them. It's really fun. Let's see, I feel like I'm going to warm this up just a little bit, make it easier to move things around. Can't wait for the review. Yeah, it should be a fun video. I think it's gonna be kind of just talking about, mostly just about sculpting, sculpting this. Sculpting using a sculpting wax. It's going to be what a lot of the video covers. Oh, let's see. But yeah, it should be a fun video. Hopefully the company that is sponsoring it will feel it was worthwhile and that they get some support for their product. I think it's great that companies are trying to innovate and make tools that can help save artists money. And this one, you know, saves you money by allowing you to skip the mold making process and go right to the casting, bronze casting. I mean, bronze casting is still expensive, but mold making is usually just as expensive. So it like basically halves the price. And the tricky thing about, or one of the disadvantages, I guess, would be that you only get one sculpture. But then, you know, that makes it a one of a kind, so then its perceived value usually increases if investors know that that's the only one out there. So that could be, I guess, seen as a disadvantage or as an advantage, depending on how you look at it.
Sorry.
No problem. Just sculpting. Let's see, can you repeat yourself? An ad popped up. Oh, let's see. What was I even saying? Oh, just that one of the advantages of this wax is that you can go directly to the mold, to the casting process. But then with that comes the disadvantage that it becomes a one of a kind. It's not a repeatable thing because you don't make the mold. So it basically halves the cost of getting it cast in bronze, because the mold making process is usually about half of the cost. Very expensive and can be tricky depending on the design. But this allows you to go right to casting, and then you get a bronze sculpture that's a one of a kind. So you can look at that as a disadvantage if you'd like to have multiple editions of a sculpture, or an advantage because then it increases the perceived value of the sculpture because there's only one in existence. And so but I do like that this company is trying to find, you know, innovative solutions for artists to help them save money and make bronze casting more available. I think that's a good thing for something that can be a very expensive. Let's see, let me get a little bit closer and move the camera to try to work on some of the details of the face. Still needs a little bit of texturing and detail work. It's a good thing, Dean. It's going to look lovely bronzed. Well, hopefully it looks good in bronze. It's hard because sculptures, you know, sometimes they look their best in the original clay. And that's just how it is sometimes. But I'm hopeful that it looks just as good in bronze. I looked up the story of Samson, and I read that he was actually in prison long enough where it says that his hair began to grow back, so I wanted to switch that. So I made it was like bald before, because I thought that this scene happened right after he was, basically his head was shaved and then he was unable to, he lost his strength. But it says that his hair was able to grow back just a little bit, so that kind of changes the hair a little bit. I would like it to be fairly accurate to the story, even though it's kind of a dramatic, you know, a dramatization of the pose, a very dramatic, exaggerated pose. Amazing. What clay are you using? This is a sculpting wax that is by a company called Precisioned, with a Z, Precisioned. And I'll be doing a product video about this. It's a product that's it's not quite available yet, but once it comes out, I'll be doing a promo video for it and be talking more about it and the sculpting process and those things. So if you're interested in that, make sure that you're subscribed and hit the notification bell. That should be coming out in the next couple weeks. Once the product is available for sale, and it's a sculpting wax that allows you to burn out the sculpture during the casting process with bronze, so that you can go right to casting and skip the mold making process. So it's kind of a cool product in that way. And yeah, I'll have more information about it in that promo video. The company hired me to do a little promo for it, so this is part of that. This sculpture is part of that. But it's been fun. It's one that I've enjoyed, so hopefully there's more. Hopefully the product launch is successful and they'll hire me to do more promos or something. And, you know, that's the ideal situation where everybody benefits from these types of collaborations. But it's a sculpting wax that doesn't actually have any clay body. So it doesn't have any like natural clay, which usually polymer clay and natural water-based clay, as well as plasticine or plastilina. All of those clays have natural like clay as the body of the clay. And then, you know, water-based clays or ceramic clays are mixed with water. Plasticine and plastilina are mixed with oils. Oh, polymer clay. Polymer clay is not a natural clay body. It's like a plastic. It's like a plastic-like materials, so that when it bakes, it hardens. So that one's not a natural clay body either. So, but it doesn't. That one wouldn't bake out. So this is just different types of waxes mixed together in a proprietary mix that allows you to go right to the bronzing process. So let's see. I'm trying to look at the face and see, make sure that it looks somewhat symmetrical from side to side. I'm seeing some asymmetry in some of the parts. So I want to try to address that. Face is really important. I feel like this needs just a little bit less clay over here. After this, what do you sculpt next? I'll probably move on to some of the, I need to do some stone sculptures to prepare for a show. Those, it's hard to do during live streams, the stone sculptures, so I don't know if I'll do as many live streams for those. But I'll need to start doing some of those to get ready for the Sculpture in the Park show in Loveland. What else do I need to do? There's another company that I might do another promo video with that does mold making supplies and casting resin. So well, you guys will see if that ends up working out. So those might be other, like casting videos or something that people have asked me about quite a bit. So I might do some videos about that. Thank you, I look forward to it. Let's see. I've experienced making jewelry through lost wax casting. Is essentially the same thing, where you pour plaster over the piece and then cure it in a kiln. Yeah. Oh, they're asking, is it basically the same? Yeah, that's basically, yeah, it's a ceramic shell, usually plaster, like a high heat tolerant plaster and sand mixture, and then you put that, you basically dip the sculpture into that and build up kind of this shell around the sculpture, and then melt out the wax. And this is a wax that can be entirely melted out or burnt out. And that way you can skip the mold making, the silicone mold making process, which is a tricky process. Don't say my just a teenager back. Said I got tickets to Iron Maiden, baby. Let me just grab a, I'm gonna grab an ear reference that I sculpted earlier. This one right here. Just better see the forms of the ear. Let's see, can you guys see? Oh. Gonna use this reference. It's one that I made during the portrait sculpting course. So one of the assignments was to do all of the facial features larger than life-size scale, and having that reference is handy. Have you ever thought about doing a video on how to sculpt Asian faces? Well, maybe if I had an Asian model that I was interested in sculpting. I haven't been able to hire too many models. Something that I'd like to hopefully be able to do more of. But you know, maybe I'd do a video on just different sculpting different ethnicities. Somebody was talking about that they were doing a sculpting class and they went over all the bones of the face, like a very anatomical skull, and then they invite the model in and then they sculpt on top of that skull. And they did this skull and then they invited the model in, so it has all the bony features, and then they invited the model in, and it was an Asian model. And so with one thing with the Asian portrait is a lot of those bony features are basically they're basically smoothed out, just the way that their bone structure is. It's very smooth, whereas Western European portraits typically are much more bony. The skull informs the portrait a lot more. But anyway, that sculptor thought it was really funny that they went through all the work of doing the skull and then basically just smoothed everything out on top of that, just because the way that the Asian the stereotype or the typical Asian is structured, the portrait is structured. That ear can hear me whisper. Yeah, it's a big ear for sure. Trying to the ear is not the most exciting facial feature, but it is important. It's definitely an interesting one, but it's not, you know, it's probably the least noticed. Like, we don't go to a sculpture and be like, well, how did they do on the ears? But if you can do the ears well, then it does, you know, it does make your sculpture a lot better. And that's an okay ear. It's not spectacular, but I'm going to move on to the other one, and if I have time, I'll come back and do these. But I need to start getting close to wrapping up the sculpting part of this to move on to the video editing. Add a little bit more mass to this inside anti-helix part of the ear, which is this Y form here on the inner part, just because I want to. Thought I was done, and then I had to come back and work on that a little bit more, so we'll see. Let me work on this other side. I apologize if you can't see super well. Sometimes it's hard to get in a position where I can see really good and where the camera can see really good. It can be kind of tricky sometimes. Says I can see the sculpture. Good. Well, that's good. Yeah, it's just sometimes I cover up where I'm working with the tool or with my hand. And it's like, oh. I try not to do that too much, but sometimes I do. I used to do that a lot more with sculpture. Sometimes I'd be sculpting for hours, and then I'd look at the footage after and realize that it's not usable because I'm hiding what I'm doing so much. Very unfortunate. That's why it helps to have a external monitor when you're working, if you're doing something artistic or sculpting especially. I think with drawing you can kind of set up a place where, you know, you just make sure that your hand's out of the way. But with sculpting, when you're moving around or turning the sculpture, then it becomes more essential to have a way of monitoring what you're filming, or just making sure that you're staying still while you're sculpting, which I have a hard time doing. Wish you could do a sculpture for my town. Barely any sculptures. And one we have, not big. And the one that we have, I'm not a big fan of. Yeah, well, maybe I could. You have to convince basically the, whatever it is, the city council to to do a sculpture, to pay for a sculpture, or however that goes through. Maybe it's the state that has to do it. And then once you have that, usually they put out a call for people on, what is it? It's a website where sculptors can apply, and then there's a process. I should apply for more of those grants to do larger monument sculptures. I'd like to do more of those. Yeah, I'd love to do some big monument, like life-size sculptures for towns. The problem is, you know, for individuals, you know, the monuments are, you know, they usually cost hundreds of thousands to do life-size bronze sculptures with all the materials and casting, and, you know, when all is said and done, it's hundreds of thousands usually. So it's just a, you know, it's just a different game. I mean, you can do, maybe there's some smaller ones or easier ones that maybe you could do for cheaper than that, but usually towns are the only ones that, towns or really wealthy people are the people that can afford to commission those types of larger sculpture projects. But I definitely think it's worthwhile, especially if your town has a story that's worth telling of, you know, the founders of that town, or the industry or something. I think that's really worthwhile. Oh, I need to zoom out. I'm just going to work kind of all over. Let me see. I'm looking for a different tool. Let's see, where did I put it? I don't see it. Looking for just a pottery loop tool. I thought I had one around here, but must have misplaced it. Oh well. Just use this one. Is it on your sculpting table that you made? Not my most recent one. So the one that I just posted about recently is, or that I just had a short about, that one's in the garage that I'm converting into a barn studio. And so I don't have room for that table in here. I'm in my house right now, so I still need to fix the roof of the barn completely to make sure that there's no leaks, and then I'll probably start to move my studio space over there. Well, I need to do that and to insulate it so that it's not freezing. Get a heat source over there and stuff. So there's still a little bit that needs to be done before I'm ready to move my filming over there. Well, I can do some filming over there, and I have, but mostly just fixing up the barn. But until I film the majority of my videos over there, I still have a little bit of work to do. See, when I look at this from the side, I'm seeing that there's kind of, it curves in here at the base. I need to fix that base a little bit. Who says I love the window view of the barn? Yeah, it's a nice view out there. It's even better when it's more green out there. But then it tinges all the light green that comes into the studio. So I'll have to, what I'd like to do is get a light that I can adjust the color of it so that I can match the outside color to the inside color. And then use I'd probably use the outside light as like a backlight or a hair light or something, and then have a more controlled studio setup for the main camera. But I'll have to see. It's going to be fun setting up that studio and playing around with things, but it's still a little while away. But if you're interested in coming to the studio, I hope that you check out there's a link in the description of this video to an in-person sculpting workshop that'll be coming up in June. It'll happen then, and so if you're interested in coming and sculpting and hanging out in my home studio and asking me questions, getting direct feedback in person and all of that stuff, if that sounds like something that you'd enjoy and would be fun, then I hope you'll check that out and consider coming. It should be a fun experience for those that can make it. But I understand, not everybody can travel to the middle of the country, to Iowa. It's kind of out of the way. So that's why I teach, the online stuff. because not everybody can travel to an in-person workshop. But it is cool if you can go and see somebody's studio and be with them in person. It's definitely a great experience if it's something that you can afford. See, I'm going to take this, I was using this for another sculpture, so this is a metal floor flange that I usually put a support to support the other sculptures, but I don't really need this here and it's kind of getting in the way, so I'm going to just take this off. But these metal floor flanges are great for when you do need to support the sculpture. You can just put some metal tubing to support the sculpture from above or from the side. But I'll save this floor flange for another piece of wood, for another base. Last one's hard to get out. Let's see if I can move it a little bit. And that last one really doesn't want to come out. Should have taken that off before I started. But no time like the present. One of the things that they barely talk about is an artist making their own tools or setup. Yeah, I agree. That's kind of a under-discussed area of art, but I do think being able to build is an important thing. Whether you're building an armature or building a table or, you know, building a support for a life-size sculpture, you have to understand just how to structure something so that it stays together and supports the work. And if you don't, then you're gonna pay for it. You know, the sculpture will fall down, or you'll lose a lot of time, or something will break. And so just building skills are really valuable for sculpting for sure. Yeah, but I enjoy building. I think if you can enjoy part of it. I guess I just wish I enjoyed mold making, because then I would make molds a lot more and probably be able to, you know, cast a lot more sculptures and then maybe have more success selling stuff online, because part of the reason that I don't is probably because I don't mold and cast and get it ready to sell. That's something I could improve on, but you know, there's so many things to improve on. It's a big list. Why don't I enjoy mold making? You know, it's just a difficult process. Almost always something goes wrong, because there's so many parts of it, and to make sure that things are vented in such a way, and you know, the seam, and making sure that there's no air bubbles, and even if you get a perfect mold, you know, the casting can sometimes just unexpected things happen and that have to be fixed afterwards, and then fixing each one is really time consuming. That's one of the things I really did not enjoy that much about making my own chess set. When I sculpted my own chess set, I liked the finished product, but man, it was so much work. So much work molding and casting all of those pieces. But I probably just need to get better at it. Maybe sell more, and then I'm more motivated to do it. Do you own a vacuum chamber? Yeah, I have a little one. I think it's like a 10-gallon chamber for degassing the silicone and the resin. But I think I just need to do it more, I think is the thing. Just put it off, and then those things that you put off and don't do, you know, you don't get better at it. But if you just do it a lot, then you get good at it, and once you're good at it, then it becomes more enjoyable, because it's a skill that's in your tool house. But I'd say if you're going to learn a skill as a sculptor, you know, mold making is a great skill to have. Because there's lots of sculptors that don't want to do it, like myself. So if you go to them and you're like, hey, can I study with you? I'll make your molds for you. Then I think a lot of sculptors would be like, oh yeah, do you have experience? And if you can do it, then they would appreciate that. Stunning, fantastic job. Thank you, I appreciate it. It's coming along slowly. I'm getting close to finishing. I just want to have these walls a little bit cleaner. They kind of frame the sculpture. Did you ever get to the section of the story about his strength because they didn't know where it was coming from? I did read through it, but that part didn't stand out to me. I didn't. I'd maybe need the exact verse, but it might have been earlier in the story. So I just read the kind of the end to the story. I think it was Judges. What was it? Was it Judges 16? I did read through it, but after reading through it, I realized that it did mention that that his hair started to grow back after he had after his strength was taken from him and he was imprisoned. Then his hair started to grow back. So that happened before this scene, which is the final scene of that story, his final prayer. Samson's final prayer. And so after that, I did change the sculpture to add back just like some stubble of the hair, as if it's growing back, where originally it was just going to be clean shaven. So I am glad I went through. I need to. I'll probably do the promo video, but then I'll probably also do another video just about this sculpture and sculpting it, and kind of maybe the story of Samson, and have some fun with that, because I've got many hours of footage, so it would be fun to do multiple videos from this footage, maybe a more in-depth behind the scenes, or maybe one video that goes over the story, one video maybe that just exclusively focuses on building an armature with wax, like a wax armature, because that was a fun process and something that I'd like to do again. I'd like to do more of these, and maybe even I have some extra material, so maybe I'll even like cast it in plaster myself, and then resin or something, like melt out not this sculpture, but different sculptures. Maybe I'll melt out the wax and cast it in resin or something like that. Judges 16:5, they asked Delilah to find out where it comes from. Oh, okay, I see. to find out where his strength came from. That they knew that there was no natural way somebody could be that strong, so there must be something behind it. And there was. Okay, I need to finish the hands now. The hands, and then just, I guess, touching up the beams. I'm putting off the hands. They're a tricky area. I think I need to take more references before I go into those. Yeah, that's just amazing work. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a fun, definitely been a fun project. I'd like to do more of these based on, you know, whether it's Bible figures or characters from literature or things like that. I think it'd be fun to do a series of these types of sculptures. In the past, the sculptors would often hire people to do the parts of the sculpture that they weren't interested in. So for example, Bernini hired out in one of his, I think it was Bernini, in one of his most impressive sculptures, there was a bunch of these flowers. It was like a tree and a bunch of these flowers that were carved as stone. Oh, food's ready. I gotta wrap it up. Anyway, he hired that out, and the sculptor that did it was bitter because I guess he wasn't mentioned in the piece or something. So I'd like to hire out all of the work other than the figure. No, maybe not, but come on now, Jamos. Okay, yeah, check out the sculpting courses if you're interested in learning sculpting. I'll be coming out with a video promo for this product pretty soon in the next couple weeks. And so if you can support the sponsor and get some of this and try sculpting it yourself, that'll help me out and help them know that it was worthwhile, and maybe they'll sponsor future videos. So if you like this type of content, it always helps to support the sponsors. Now that I can say that I have a sponsor, and hopefully more in the future. And yeah, check out the courses, links to those in the description. And yeah, stay creative, stay productive. Dinner time, yep, dinner time. So I'll see you guys around, hopefully again soon.